They said I should sit next to someone trustworthy on my first long-haul flight. So when the man in seat 12B smiled and stood up to help me with my suitcase, I thought, perfect. He looked like any gentle middle-aged salaryman from Tokyo. Neat suit, wire-frame glasses, wedding ring. He put my luggage in the overhead bin like it weighed nothing and stepped aside so I could sit by the window. "First time flying this far?" he asked in soft, careful English. "Is it that obvious?" I laughed. "A little," he said. "Don't worry. I fly this route every month. If you get anxious, just talk to me. I'm a good listener." He really was. During takeoff, when my stomach jumped and my hands clenched the armrests, he distracted me with stories. Conferences in Singapore. Jet lag tips. The best airport ramen in Japan. His voice was calm and slow, like a therapist or a teacher who actually likes children. When the seatbelt sign turned off, he ordered tomato juice. "No alcohol." "I don't drink on planes," he said. "Too many things can go wrong already." That should have been a hint. But back then, I still believed that people who sound safe are safe. Somewhere over the ocean, most of the cabin went dark. The lights dimmed to blue, the window shades slid down, and the plane settled into that strange half-night of long flights. Screens flickered weakly, a baby cried and then quieted. 12B turned to me. "Can I ask you a slightly strange question?" he said. "Sure," I said, bored and too awake. He looked genuinely embarrassed. "I like to think about people," he said. "How they react. How they change. It's part of my job. So I sometimes ask hypothetical questions. You don't have to answer if you don't want to." "That's fine," I said. "I like weird questions." He smiled. "Good. Here's one. If something terrible happened on this plane, say, a sudden drop, or a fire, and you survived, what's the first thing you'd do when you got home?" I blinked. Call my family, I guess. Tell them I'm okay. Not post on social media," he said. "Not record anything?" "Maybe later," I said. "But first, my parents." He nodded slowly, filing it away like a note. "And what about your biggest regret?" he asked. "Something you'd wish you'd done, if we almost crashed?" "Wow," I said. "You go straight for the deep stuff, huh?" He apologized gently, but his eyes didn't. "I thought about it. I'd regret not taking more risks while I can," I said. "I always play it safe. Maybe I'd wish I'd been braver." He smiled again, that perfect, harmless curve. "Thank you," he said. "That's very honest." He looked out at the blank dark where the window shade was, even though you couldn't see anything. "I think that's the main difference between you and the last one," he added softly. "The last, what?" I asked. He didn't answer directly. "Would you mind if I changed seats with someone for a few minutes?" he said instead. "I want to talk to the flight attendant about something." Before I could respond, he had already pressed the call button. The flight attendant came with her polite smile, her tidy hair. "Yes, sir. Is everything all right?" "Oh yes," he said. "I was just wondering, you seem experienced. If there was, say, a medical emergency on the plane, how quickly would you be able to reach someone in this row?" She blinked. "Very quickly, sir. We're trained for. Especially if someone stopped breathing," he added. "Hypothetically." Her smile flickered. "If you're feeling unwell, we can." No, he said. "Just curious. I do risk training for a living. I think about these things. Sorry to bother you." He smiled in that way that makes service workers relax. She laughed nervously, said it was fine, and left. He turned back to me. "People always answer honestly if you give them a role," he said. "Her role is helpful attendant. Your role is nervous first-time flyer. My role is kind stranger." He tilted his head a little. "Do you ever wonder what happens when someone changes roles without telling you?" My throat felt dry. Are you some kind of psychologist? I asked. Oh, nothing so official, he said. I work in safety. I study patterns. How people behave when things go wrong. There's so much information lost in official reports. Black boxes. Numbers. But the most interesting part is always the human reaction. He sipped his tomato juice. Sometimes, if you're very lucky, he said, you get to be there during the event, not just after. Lucky, I repeated weakly. He smiled. Don't worry, he said. Nothing bad has ever happened on any flight I was on. He paused, then added, except once. I told myself he was just being dramatic. But I noticed that his eyes, behind the glasses, never looked tired. Not even in the stale dry air of the cabin. They were bright. Awake. Interested. Like he was watching a live show. Hours passed. Most people slept. I couldn't. I put on a movie, but kept taking my headphones off, aware of the steady breathing of the person next to me. At some point, 12B leaned close enough that I felt his breath on my ear. Look, he whispered. I followed his gaze. Across the aisle, a teenage boy was twitching in his sleep, his shoulder jerking. His open laptop balanced precariously on the tray table. The cord of his noise-canceling headphones dangled loosely. He didn't wear his seatbelt, 12B murmured. Even after they told him. See? He was right. The belt hung limp at the boy's sides. So what? I whispered back. In turbulence, 12B said, unrestrained bodies become projectiles. They hit other people. They break necks. Most injuries are caused by that, not the turbulence itself. One careless person, and 5 others suffer. He spoke calmly, like a teacher explaining physics. I always wonder, he went on, if a tiny scare earlier would save them from a bigger injury later. That's my hobby, you could say. Preventive experiences. I pulled my arm closer to my body. What does that mean? I asked. He just smiled and closed his eyes, as if going to sleep. Except his fingers tapped lightly on the armrest, counting something. 1, 2, 3, 4. The plane suddenly jolted. The seatbelt sign chimed on. The teenage boy's laptop slid, almost fell. He grabbed it at the last second, swearing, headphones yanked from his ears. Please remain seated with your seatbelts fastened, the announcement said. I realized that my seatbelt was already tightly on. Him, me, everyone in our row. Everyone, except the boy across the aisle. 12B opened his eyes. That should be enough for him to remember next time, he said. I stared at him. Did you know that was coming? I asked. Of course not, he said. No one can predict turbulence exactly. But he looked so delighted. Still, he said. Isn't it satisfying? Nothing broken. Just a little fear. A small correction. Much kinder than letting him learn during something worse, don't you think? He turned that question mark smile on me. I didn't answer. I couldn't decide which was worse, if he had really predicted it, or if he was just waiting for something bad like it was a reward. Later, when the cabin was almost silent, he spoke again. You told me your biggest regret would be not taking more risks, he said. Do you still feel that way? I swallowed. Right now, I don't know. He nodded. That's good. You're already changing. Most people never notice their own hypocrisy. They say they want danger, but when even a tiny bit appears, he snapped his fingers softly, they cling to the armrests. He tilted his head. My biggest regret is different, he said. I regret not collecting enough data while I still have the energy. Planes, trains, hotels, offices, the world has so many moments that could become incidents, and so few people who truly pay attention before they happen. His voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. You mean like, preventing accidents? I asked. Yes, he said. Sometimes. And the other times? I whispered. He smiled. The other times, he said, I just watch. He looked at my hands. You don't bite your nails, he observed. But you keep touching your phone when you're nervous. Interesting. On my screen, the time to destination ticked down. 5 hours left. 5 hours next to a man whose idea of interest felt wrong in a way I didn't have words for. We landed without incident. No emergency. No crash. Just the usual bump of tires on runway, the reverse thrust, the applause from tourists. Everyone began to stand, to open overhead bins, to complain about jet lag. 12B stayed seated until the row ahead of us emptied. Then he turned to me one last time. Thank you for your honesty, he said. You were very helpful. Helpful? I asked. He nodded. I wanted to see how much fear a person like you can tolerate before you change your story, he said. At first, you wanted more risk in your life. By the end, you wanted none. That's useful for my work. He picked up his briefcase. If you ever do survive something terrible, he added, remember this flight. Remember how safe you felt just because you were sitting near someone who explained everything calmly. He smiled. That's the most dangerous feeling in the world. He stepped into the aisle. I grabbed the armrest. Wait, I said. What exactly is your work? He thought for a moment. I design scenarios, he said. For training. For drills. Sometimes for real life. For real life? He leaned closer, as if sharing a secret. Have you ever noticed, he said quietly, how similar the news reports sound after a disaster? We never thought it could happen here. He seemed like such a nice man. Everything was normal, until it wasn't. He straightened up. Patterns, he said. I just give them a little push. Then he was gone, swallowed by the crowd moving toward immigration. 2 weeks later, a video went viral. Phone footage from another flight on the same route. The clip showed passengers screaming as the cabin filled with smoke, masks dropping, lights flickering. Somewhere in the chaos, a calm male voice said, "It's okay. Breathe slowly. Watch me." The camera briefly caught his face. Gray suit. Wireframe glasses. Kind eyes. The news called him a hero for guiding people during the emergency landing. They said he saved at least 7 lives. Online, everyone praised him. What an amazing person. I hope I meet someone like him when I'm in trouble. He should teach classes on how to stay calm. I watched the video over and over. I knew that voice. I knew the way he placed his hand on the seat back. The way he gave people roles. You, help her. You, hold this. Everyone, look at me. He was collecting data again. Learning exactly where people break. The airline gave him a medal. He smiled in the photos the same way he had smiled at me, gentle, reassuring, perfectly calculated. Everyone called him a good man. Maybe they're right. Maybe he really does prevent more suffering than he causes. But when I ride planes now, I play a private game. I scan the cabin. I look at every kind stranger. And I ask myself one question. If something terrible happened right now, who would enjoy watching it the most? If I ever see him again, seat 12B, gray suit, tomato juice in hand, I don't know whether I'll feel safer or in more danger. Maybe both. That's the worst part. Monsters are easy to fear. It's the ones who smile and help you with your luggage that you never see coming.